Hello, Civ fans, and welcome back for this week's live stream of Civilization VI Gathering Storm. My name is Sarah Darney. I'm your host today, and I am joined in studio by Ed Beach, lead designer, and Jason Johnson, our art director. So JJ, it's actually your first time on the stream, so can you just give a little introduction to what you do, who you are?
Sure. I'm JJ, I'm the art director for Gathering Storm. I was also the art director for the last expansion, Rise and Fall. And I started here at Firaxis on Brave New World. And this year will mark, 25 years from me working in the video game industry.
Ooh, we've got a veteran on our hands.
Somewhat.
Yeah.
Claim. No, I just wanted to give Jason a shout out because his team has just done amazing work this last year. They were so, enthralled with kind of where we were going with the game this year and some of the things we wanted to introduce.
Thanks.
And so, I knew we were going to have something for volcanoes, but I had no idea that they were going to end up the way they ended up. And then just everything just kind of built on that. And we got lots of things done way above where I was expecting them to be. So
Awesome. Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, you were actually the lead environment artist for base game.
Yes,
correct?
it was. Yes.
Yeah. So it was really cool for me just to kind of see the world come alive with base Civ 6, but then also the addition, so many additions in Gathering Storm. With the volcanoes, the floodplains, all
pretty
that.
cool.
Yeah. What's your favorite visualization in there?
Floodplains and volcanoes, they're really close.
Yeah.
They're both super, super cool. So.
Nice. All right, so today we are going to be playing as the Maori. This is a first-time Civ, right? Sort of.
Half and half.
Okay.
But we're going to say yes.
Okay. All right.
So we had Polynesia in Civ 5, and they were very popular. Everyone liked the fact that, wow, I can just immediately take off and go across the ocean if I want to. So that's, gave them just a really unique play style right out of the gate. So we wanted to bring that back, but we kind of knew that we had mixed and matched from different parts of Polynesia,
Right.
and we wanted to drill down that, the more we can drill down and really embrace a specific culture, the better we feel like we're doing it, truly representing who they are and giving their culture and their leader and their history a voice.
Yeah.
So we felt like we did that this time with the Maori. We dug nice and deep so that we between the mythology of Coupe and his discovery of New Zealand, which probably did happen at some level, but exactly how that's worked into the history is sort of a little bit of an unknown. But once we realized how many different groups, how many of the tribes or the iwis within New Zealand embrace Coupe as sort of their founding father, we decided he was a great leader for us, and that's the way we wanted to go.
Awesome. So a lot of his story, the story of Coupe and the story of the Maori kind of plays into their gameplay. Do you want to talk just a little bit about that before we jump in the game?
Absolutely. And so I feel like Polynesian Civ 5 was fun, but sometimes you'd be placed in a starting position that was good to begin with. Or maybe it had a lot of coastline, and they were concerned with lots of coastline because they wanted to put their Moai statues up. So sometimes you just stayed where you were, and I didn't get around to using their ocean-going capabilities right away.
Yeah.
Right.
And I felt like that was cool, but I wasn't actually always using the thing that made them really, really interesting. And once I heard Coupe's story, that just sort of captivated me. It was like, how do you pick up everything that you've own and your whole village and just put them onto Waka canoes and just trust that you're going to find a great place to, establish your kingdom somewhere across the water. And so I just felt like that was such a good story. I wanted Civ players to live that story. So if they could start the game in the middle of the ocean, not be able to see land in any direction, and just try to trust that they're going to find something good enough that they're going to be able to not only, establish a foothold there, but flourish and become a dominant civilization. That's just a really cool game story, and we wanted to tell that, and so that's exactly how they start.
So I think that is actually a really good segue into what we want to do today. We want to do things a little bit different, and so let's jump into the game. This is a game that none of us have seen yet. We created the save, but we haven't actually played it. So we want to hear from chat. Jump in and kind of tell us which way you want us to go. We'll do a very scientific approach to this, and we'll just choose north or south or whatever direction for each move.
And just to give a little bit of context here, people have been looking at the Maori's abilities and saying, wow, that Civ looks very, very powerful. You know,
my gosh.
how are they going to possibly be balanced with the other Civs in the game?
Yeah, good point.
And so I wanted to explain a little bit about how this start works. So the cool thing about this start is we've actually made this a generic capability, and
Let's go west.
West. Okay, we're going west to begin with.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. That's a big.
I'm having trouble keeping up.
Yeah. So, and we're not finding anything to the west. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and one other thing that we should ask them, for right now, we've kept our units together. But
Oh, yeah, that's true.
The other thing that we can do is when you're playing as a Maori use, you can decide, I'm playing risky,
All right,
and I'll
Carl.
send my settler off one way, but my warrior is going to maybe explore somewhere else.
I'd always
Let's go
split them.
south. So when you play, you typically separate or go together?
I separate them
Okay.
because
I do too.
I think
Okay.
if you land carefully, you can establish your city without the escort, and then you get a lot more information if you're moving them independently. Oh
We found
no,
some
it's
land.
tundra. Head the other way. Okay, so the key thing here is, I think this is a 6-player game,
Mm-hmm.
and so normally when we do map generation for a
West.
6-player game, we take the map and we divide it into 6 large segments that are all nice, big, fertile areas to settle in. And everyone gets one of those pre-allocated to them, so they have got a lot of space to develop their empire.
Right, yeah.
But in this particular case, that's not how it works. Once you introduce a ocean start civ like the Maori, immediately it says, oh, I don't need to allocate space for them on the land. I'm going to divide the land only into 5 pieces. So everyone else gets a better start. They get more fertility, more land pre-allocated to them. They're spread apart further. And our poor Maori player is going to have to reach land and decide, hey, I'm going to shoehorn in here. Don't
Yeah.
mind me, but I am carving
This
off
is,
a little
my
part of your
little
land.
now.
And that, just the fact that that's the way the map's divided up and they don't get anything allocated to them, they have got to be a little bit more powerful than the average civ just to be able to make the inroads they need to keep them viable. So you end up probably, I end up when I play them, I sort of borrow from 2 or 3 other players' lands. I don't, typically I want more space than I can carve out just on the edge of one person's pre-allocated lands. But, sometimes, across a sea, I can find 2 different lands that both will support me. But I definitely have to have that extra oomph
Yeah, for sure.
to get going.
Now we're going to definitely have to get into that a little more. But we've got land here.
And we have an opponent.
And we have an opponent. All right, so where are we going to settle into this land? I'm seeing a lot of people saying river. So we had a little river back.
There are 2 rivers.
Yeah, I think
but
there was one there,
that's
and
a
there's
very
one up
protected one.
north, more towards Norway.
How that this isn't
Forward settle Norway.
very far north of the tundra, is it?
No, I think it's a pretty
decent bit.
yeah.
Okay, all right. So I think right where Carl's got our settler now
Yep.
is certainly worth consideration.
Chad is saying Southern River.
Up.
Easy.
Oh,
Norway
no.
likes that spot
Ooh.
too.
Oh my gosh, you're way braver than I am leaving your settler back there. If we get attacked and lose a settler,
Okay, so we have 4 movement points. We can land on that grassland tile and establish a city there in the first turn. I will have an amber resource. I think we should go ahead and do that.
all right.
I don't know if Chad agrees with me, but or maybe we wait and we settle near
Ooh.
the Giant's Causeway that we just found. But that's a barbarian land, so that's dangerous as well. So anyways, this is why I love playing the Maori.
I do too.
They're absolutely my favorite to play.
You get those real good decisions right off the bat.
Right.
It's a lot of
And-
fun.
All right, Carl made a choice for us, so we're settling right here.
Okay, so one key ability they have because obviously we're behind in terms of land right now. We need to get extra land. So that's why we gave them a culture bomb ability, was because, now that they've established an outpost, we wanted to not have them worry about housing. So we gave them a little extra housing in the palace. Right. We didn't want them to have to worry about how far behind they were in terms of tile growth. So we give them culture bomb off the fishing boats to get some extra tiles. So if we could get, for instance, a boat out to that jade tile, we should be able to expand our territory there.
I should have called it out before Carl settled, but we have a new unique settler unit for the embarked state out in the water, as well as the embarked units in general have 3 canoes that we made custom for this set.
Well, hopefully we'll re-embark another settler.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
If we only have one city all game, we're not going to be doing very well.
No, that's true. That's true.
Once we get the next one, we'll zoom in on that and give it a nice look, because really the aesthetic of the Maori is one of my favorites in the game. It's so striking and different.
Yeah, it's like very graphic too, with some of their carvings. I was really, really excited when Ed settled on the Maori for this.
Yeah. So how did that process work? I know that we worked a little bit with some outside assistance.
Yes. We had some connections in 2K Australia that we contacted them for some more connection to some New Zealand folks. And for Kupe's tattoos, for instance, we used a Tamoko artist in New Zealand named Katz and let him just design exactly what he thought Kupe would have worn.
Let's pull that up on the screen right now. Make sure that everyone has a good chance to see it. Because it is a very important part of the Maori culture.
Absolutely.
And it's awesome that we were able to get, a very authentic piece done for our Kupe.
Yeah, in their culture, it's only they can really do the tattoos, and we weren't going to do it unless we had an official Maori artist do it. And
nice.
We actually gave him no art direction whatsoever and just let him do it, so.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. It adds a lot of character to it.
I love it. I think it's so cool.
All right, so while we're here, we've got a lot of people asking, what is Kupe's agenda?
Okay, so Kupe's agenda, I did send this out on Twitter, but we didn't sort of initially, officially announce it. It comes from a Maori word. It's a compound word, so it's Kiataki, which means guardian, and they add tonga at the end of that, so Kiataki tonga.
Kiataki tonga.
Yes, and that means guardianship. And that really is a sort of a embodiment of the Maori belief system, that it's not necessarily that the Maori own land or possess land or feel like they have a kingdom that is theirs. They feel like the land is sort of something more that they they need to protect.
Yeah.
And maybe the land owns them a little bit.
Okay.
There's actually there was a very well-publicized legal case in New Zealand recently where a river in New Zealand was given actual rights in courts.
Oh, really?
Because of the fact that
really
that's sort of just part of the way their belief system operates.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can find any culture or peoples that has any higher level of respect for the environment and nature than that. And so that was why they're a perfect fit for Gathering Storm. While we wanted to work that into the leader agenda, we wanted to find somebody who was going to get unhappy with you if you were playing and not being conscious of what was happening to the planet.
Now, it sounds like it's similar to the environmentalist agenda.
So the way it works is I looked at the environmentalist agenda that we had before, and I decided it wasn't sufficient for Gathering Storm.
Okay.
It needed to be sort of upgraded for that. So things like what your carbon emissions level are, things like that didn't exist before. So I took a lot of the factors that we had already had in the environmentalist agenda, so what level of deforestation the trees have, and whether you've created any national parks, whether you've planted any new trees or forests. Those are all still there, but then I added some more detail to it, including things like looking at the carbon emissions. And now there still is the environmentalist random agenda, and they both work the same way, so that you kind of can understand that if there's another leader in the game, maybe who also has the environmentalist agenda and Kupe's in your game, you'll know that, okay, there are two people that I can keep either happy or angry with me based on my actions.
Awesome. Now, I do want to take this moment just real quick to remind chat, if you are on Twitch and you're watching the stream and you have questions for us, there is a separate room you can go to with questions for devs. This room has slow chat turned on so we won't miss them.
Cool.
So feel free to like keep heckling Carl in the other one. He's watching. And then jump into questions for devs if you have anything that you want us to answer, and we can try our best to get to it. Okay, so people are asking about Norway, and he is in our game. So, Norway
So
or Maori?
we actually have an interesting collection of leaders in the game. Somehow, randomly, we have all the naval powers in this game.
I don't know how that happened.
And all the colonial empires that had something to do with New Zealand as well. So, yeah, I feel like all three of these, actually all four now, naval powers that we have in here have a different strength to them. And so, yes, Norway is similar to the Maori in that they can get across the oceans earlier than everyone else can. But by the same token, Norway is all about dominating the oceans. Norway has a unique naval unit. And so their longships, and plus they have an ability that lets them build melee naval units faster throughout the entire game. So Norway always has that ability to, we're going to be powerful in the seas. We can project power on the seas. The seas are actually way more important in Gathering Storm than they've ever been. The trade routes are all getting enhanced gold from trading over the water now. With canals, you can connect up a lot more things. You can get naval units to places you couldn't get them before.
That's a lot of fun.
And so Norway having that ability to always build navies quickly, always have powerful naval forces around, that's very different than what the Maori are good at. The Maori are great at getting to land masses other people can't get to and getting an established presence there. So, so like somehow they found New Zealand, and New Zealand was this wonderful, fertile land that with great natural beauty and resources and everything else, and as far as we know, no one else was there. Yeah. So, it is sort of tucked away in a part of the world that, is a little bit harder to get to. So that's kind of the specialty we see for the Maori. The Maori are really good at getting to places that kind of have been left behind by everybody else. And then you also think about what's going on with Norway in this game here. Norway has land that was pre-allocated to them in the map, and it's a nice fertile area. We're hanging on the edge of Norway's land sheet here. So trying to compare them directly, I don't think you really can. So it's been an interesting journey with us for the Maori. We've spent probably most of this year balancing, rebalancing, retuning, rebalancing some more.
Right.
With the Maori, it's the civ that we've absolutely spent the most time on.
Yeah, they've got some interesting setbacks in addition to like their unique ways of playing. So why were those picked? Like, what is that?
Well, just to make the whole idea of the ocean start work, we had to give them a few benefits, like still accumulating culture and science during those turns. We didn't want you to feel like you had to get on land right away and immediately settle, because you might just pick an area that is suboptimal. You won't have scouted out. The scouting's the really fun part of it. So we wanted to say, hey, we're going to give you some time. And the best way we could do that was by letting you still accumulate some science and culture right from the start of the game. Now, it's a little bit odd because the culture you accumulate goes right towards Code of Laws, because that's just sort of the way the tree's set up. There's only one option there. So we know that's what you want to put it into. So that one's pre-selected for you. But we didn't want to pre-select the technology that you go towards, because you don't know where you're going to be. You might be in an area with all sorts of quarries and mines, and you need mining. Or you might be in an area where it's the plantation, irrigation side of the tree that you need. So we wanted to still let you accumulate science while you're sailing around, but you don't have to decide what to lock it into right away. Yeah, there are more parts of their ability that we can talk about now, or
Yeah,
maybe a little
yeah.
later?
No, I think that there's
So-
some really interesting gameplay there.
Right. So the other thing that we wanted them to do is we really wanted to focus on this idea that they are good stewards of the environment. And so they're going to be a civ that we give you a big incentive not to chop things down, not
Right.
to harvest resources.
Now, they
So-
cannot harvest,
Right.
correct?
So resource harvesting is absolutely prohibited for
Okay.
them. And they can't even put a new district down on top of a bonus resource
Okay.
like everyone else can. So that's a little bit restrictive in terms of their placement.
But that is different than chopping trees and rainforests.
So trees, rainforests, marsh, they can still chop those
Okay.
normally. But what we've set up is if you look at their bonuses, especially when they get their unique amphitheater, the Maori
Yeah.
online, they want to keep as many features within their cities as possible. And so the passable feature that is listed there as getting the bonus once they've kind of got everything in place, that's, any tile with a woods or rainforest or marsh that you're allowed to move through. There are some features that are impassable. Volcanoes are actually considered features right now.
Okay.
When we added them for Gathering Storm, they became features. So, we didn't want you to think you'd get bonuses for those, but basically anywhere you can move and allocate citizens to work and those kind of things,
Right.
they get the bonuses.
Okay.
Carl's got the new settler
Oh, perfect.
unit up there now.
All right, yeah. He is a really, really beautiful unit.
He's one of my favorites.
yeah.
I mean, most of the units for this culture are some of my favorite things to see, so.
You were telling me yesterday that just the way this the settler was designed is kind of based on like making sure it has the components of the land settler.
Yeah, he's got some little items and things that are on the land settler that are actually on his boat as well, too.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love all the little details that the team gets to like put in.
Yeah, they had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. I actually saw this morning, I think it was this morning, there was a post online and it was someone and they were like, what's wrong with my my pasture? And it had all the animals outside and everyone was like, oh, that means it's not being worked.
Yeah.
I was like, yep, that's
That comes
one
from
of
that
those
whole
things.
show, not tell, that we really wanted to do when we started on Vanilla and then continued through this. That's why when they were talking weather and eruptions, we
Yeah.
really wanted to show them in a really cool way instead of just being in a menu somewhere
Right.
or something. So
right. It adds to it and it kind of, for me anyway, it makes me feel like this very powerful entity seeing this whole world at my
Yeah.
fingertips come to life. It's incredible. All right, so we have
So Carl is created a second settler. Which direction did he send him? He's okay. I guess that's towards the Giant's Causeway. Would be a natural place to settle him.
yeah, right up there.
Okay. Looks like Norway's got a settler going that direction
Yeah.
as well. So
Is
beating
Carl
to the
gonna win?
punch.
he can get there first. But we're going to be split between two different locations, and Norway's going to have a nice sort of dominant central position. So
Well, we'll see what happens.
Yep.
I mean, this is the great and powerful Carl that we've got over here.
and
This is
So,
a really
yeah, now see,
interesting landmass.
This
Yeah, it
is
is.
where the Maori is strong in terms of being able to find other things on the map that other people can't get to. So you pick up a couple extra goodie huts like Carl has shown here. When you need era score, you can go ahead and circumnavigate the globe and get the era score from that. You can also get era score from finding all the civs in the game. There's era score for being the first civilization to find all the civs in the game. So
Cool.
that is one of the things I like about them is anytime you're like, I really need a golden age now. I was just in the dark age. I want to go for that heroic age.
Yeah.
You know, those kind of things, it's very easy to time all them with the Maori. So, you know, those are some of the advantages you have. It's just trying to figure out where you're going to have that nice, strong base on the map. That's always a challenge.
I like them because, to me, one of the most fun parts is exploring the map with my scout, and I immediately get to explore so much more.
Yeah.
All right, so Ed, here's a question for you. This is kind of a strategic question.
Okay.
A few people have called out that they think that the Maori might run into a lot of problems with loyalty. What do you think?
Absolutely. And that's
Gonna be a challenge.
it is a challenge. both in Carl's particular game here and in general. And we have not given them any bonuses in that regard. So that's sort of one more factor that needs to be considered. And you need to think, that's why you have to think about the ages very carefully.
Right.
That's why the fact that you can time your golden ages just when you need them is an important consideration. So there are several layers to playing the Maori. I have played them probably 4 or 5 significant games so far, and that's because the first couple games you play with them are definitely a challenge, because there are things that you might not have considered going in that you have to, sort of have that experience having played them before.
Right, of course. So when you play the Maori, do you have your cities very spread out like this, or do you cluster them up more? Or?
I tend to look for places where there's like one body of water, and I can settle all around that body of water. So at least that, if I need to reinforce from one area to another, I can just embark my army and get them from one side of that body of water to the other. I think that's sort of working out for us here in this game, but it's a little odd having Norway sort of right in between our 2 spots.
It's okay. I have a lot of faith in Carl. I say this so much to put a lot of pressure on him.
Yeah. Good. Now, did we even check what difficulty we're on, or what
this one is on King.
Okay. And what climate setting?
Climate's on 3.
Okay. It's a little bit turned down from where we've had the climate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of do something that wasn't quite as
Pressure packed.
yeah.
Right.
I feel like the last couple of streams have had just so much with the environment going on.
Right.
But I wanted to pull it back a little bit. Did he get his second city yet? I missed it.
No.
Okay. All right.
We're about to.
Okay, cool.
And
So you were telling me the other day about your Maori challenge game.
Right.
And I think that is one of the most interesting things I've
So-
heard with this expansion.
So I decided that once I got a good Maori game going, or a start where I felt like I was going to be competitive, and I played this on Emperor, so it wasn't an easy game, but I just had what I ended up doing was I ended up establishing myself on 2 different land masses with water in between them.
Okay.
And on one of the land masses, boy, it was a challenge, because there was Greece, Persia, and Russia all near me, and I could fit in 2 cities, and then they were all like telling me I'd settled too close.
Yeah. Of
Yeah.
course.
So that was super
I think
challenging.
we just got some of that.
Did we?
But what I did was I timed it so I had my TOA unique unit come online, and I got very lucky in that those 3 powers all went to war with each other.
Oh.
And so the Greece and Russian armies went to attack Persia, and Persia asked for help, and I said, okay, I'll help you. And I attacked Greece, and the Greek army was gone. So I took the Greek capital and another city, and all of a sudden I had a nice empire. And luckily the Greek army couldn't, they were mad at me for the rest of the game, and I had grievances with them and everything. But I had a strong enough base that I decided this is my good Maori start. Finally, this game I feel like I'm going to be able to win. So this all happened up, medieval, that kind of period. I hadn't gotten to the industrial area yet. And I said, going into the industrial area, I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to try to win this game without emitting any carbon. So I'm going a completely carbon neutral victory path here. So I went for the culture victory. And culture victory is a little bit of a challenge with the Maori because they don't get great writers. So they're a little slow on the tourism. But once you get to flight, people want to come visit their wonderful lands. Maybe there are going to be movies filmed there. Oh, we've got a hurricane. Okay, let's go focus on that for a bit. So anyways, I was able to catch up, and I did win my culture victory.
Really?
Without
Nice.
hitting any carbon. There's an extra story there that if we have time, I'll get to.
My God.
Oh,
That
that's
is-
really nice.
I mean, I guess I should expect it from the lead designer of the game, but I'm like, why?
Yeah, and I'm a little sad we didn't put that in as an achievement.
Yeah,
We
it
put
would have
lot of
been a
cool
really good
achievements
one.
in, but the achievement sort of had to be figured out earlier. So at the moment, that's not an achievement, but everyone else can try with any of the civs to win that way. It's fun.
All right, so I think this is the first time we've seen a hurricane
Up
in the
close,
game.
at least,
Up
yeah.
close,
Is it?
yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah, we haven't had them on
So
the
we
streams before. Let's talk about hurricanes. What's going on there?
Okay, so there are 4 different kinds of storms that have been added in the Gathering Storm expansion. So they arise in different parts of the map, and which storm it is based on what terrain sort of has been chosen for that storm to develop in. So any storm that develops at sea is considered a hurricane. We have dust storms that develop from deserts. We have,
Those are my favorite.
I don't know, I kind of like the blizzards.
Yeah, they're cool too.
So you get blizzards as well, developing from tundra and snow, and then tornadoes from grasslands and plains. And they're different sizes based on what type they are. The hurricanes, since they travel so much over water, are definitely the largest storms.
Right.
And then based on sort of the way they behave in the real world, dust storms do a lot of moving for fertile soils and depositing them in different places. Hurricanes bring significant rains. So we have both of them adding some fertility where they go across. All 4 storms will do damage.
Yeah.
The tornadoes are the only ones that sort of don't really help anybody at all. But the interesting thing about them is they're sort of the most compact.
Yeah.
So they
Right.
typically do a little bit less damage. And the storms are set up so that you don't kind of get super unlucky. And I keep getting hammered by storms over and over again. We have a whole system where we keep track of where every storm has risen.
Yeah.
And we try to have new storms crop up in different areas of the map where they haven't been before. Storms will get more frequent as the global temperature changes. So that as the planet warms up, you'll get more of them. And kind of the other thing to keep in mind is we also have droughts that also are spread around the map the same way as storms are, just to try to make sure that the storms don't crop up at the same place, and we have some randomization to how they move. They do
Right.
move according to the correct prevailing winds for whether you're in the northern and the southern hemisphere and where you are in terms of latitudes and meridians and all those kind of things. But there's enough randomness to it that nothing's too predictable there.
So that storm, it looks like it didn't quite get to our city, but did it do anything to us?
Well, we should look at the climate screen because that gives us
Okay.
a nice log of what happened with all the storms that have transpired in the game. These are all the storms that we have seen in the revealed territory. And the good thing about the Maori is they usually revealed a lot of territory. So that was a hurricane. All the hurricanes get hurricane names.
Cool.
We pull from the citizen name list, so we figure out which civ was closest to the hurricane or storm when it started.
Oh, I like that.
And we
That's great.
pull a name from that list. So yeah, they're way ahead of their time in terms of meteorology, our civilizations. But, oh well, they just know that in the future we're going to have named storms. And so you can see on the effect column how many tiles got extra fertility added to them. And it looks like there was no damage done by that hurricane. And since
Great.
that one seemed to mostly be at sea, it didn't have a lot of chances to drop extra fertility. But there will
Okay.
be 2 tiles, if we go tile by tile, we turn on tile yields, that we could find that we can figure out have been enhanced by that
Okay,
hurricane
cool.
going past.
And apparently there were some floods too.
Yeah, we met, I'm not sure if we got the location of Victoria's capital. We might have. And so the Thames River, is the
Oh,
one
right.
that
Yep.
flooding. So, yeah, again, it's giving us information about civs that we've met or rivers that we've seen.
Is there a single size of hurricane, or that can change?
Each of the storms have 2 different sizes.
Okay.
The river flooding, there are 3 levels of. The volcanoes, there are 3 levels of.
Okay.
The natural wonder volcanoes, each of those is sort of a case-by-case special setup. And we put all this in easily moddable data.
Oh, nice.
So
Great.
if modders want to go nuts and we want to have just super destructive world, or they want to add effects to additional natural wonders, or all sorts of things, that's all going to be possible.
You have an active volcano there now, too.
Oh, right up north.
Right by our
Alright.
city. Yeah, let's zoom in
Oh,
on that
good.
guy.
All right. Well, maybe it will be fine, or maybe it
Yeah.
won't. Who knows?
We'll hit Norway.
Yeah. Wow. I don't think I noticed exactly how close we are to Norway. But we've got a nice little barrier of mountains there, so we should be okay.
Oh, and
All
we can
right.
circumnavigate. So we have gotten the arrow score.
Yay.
So are we still ancient era here? No, we're classical. Okay. So that's why, yeah, our score has reset. We got a good chance of maybe going for the golden age this time.
So I have a question about the Maori. There are certain civs that tend to be more early game focused, some that are more later mid game focused. Where do they excel the most?
I think it's probably late.
Oh,
Because that's
okay.
when their culture really kicks in. That's sort of when they're gonna. I think they can play catch up a little bit.
Yeah.
In terms of like the tourism game late in the game. Now it's not when their unique unit is.
Right.
The Pa Fortress isn't very. So, they're sort of a civ that I wouldn't really pin to any part of the game. They just have different phases of what they should be doing. Beginning, it's finding a home and hanging on. So that's why their fortress, the Pa Fortress, unique improvement is so important, and the fact that getting their unique unit there is important. But I feel like once they're ashore and they've figured out which lands they can work between, and they have made contact with all the civilizations, then they start to play catch up.
Right.
And so I think that's why ultimately I feel like it's later in the game that they're going to catch up and pass people. And that's sort of how the game I played with
Interesting.
So it's not necessarily what you would expect.
No, not at all. I think we have a new city-state on here, don't we?
Did you see one?
We can look at our list of city-states.
Yeah, let's pull that up. We're all like, oh, I can't
Yeah.
see. Enhance. There we go. Yeah, this one here, a few people were asking about.
Okay, and so if we look at their suzerain bonus, their unique bonus is they get to have cheaper purchasing with gold for land units and support units. And the support units, you know, that includes the supply convoy. We added more of those with Rise and Fall, so that's definitely, you know, just purchasing units more cheaply, and that's based on the encampment buildings they have, I think. So, a city-state that'll encourage you to build up your encampments.
Nice.
That's the other nice thing about the Maori is sometimes you'll make contact with city-states that other people haven't found yet. So you can become
that's true.
suzerain of them without a lot of competition. So in general, that's sort of a key element to playing them is think about what you're aware of that everyone else hasn't found yet and build on those advantages.
Nice. I do appreciate that insight into things. Oh, so we don't usually get to hear the music in the studio here, but I'm loving this right now. The music for all of the Civ games is absolutely beautiful, but I'm super stoked about the Maori track. Really all of it, obviously, because that's what I've been saying the whole time. It's just so different.
And it has
everything about it.
Yeah, much choral work worked
Yeah.
into it, so it definitely has a different feel to everything else. It reminds me a little bit of the Zulu track from Rise and Fall, where there was a lot of different choral things worked in. So that was my favorite in Rise and Fall.
That one had my favorite modern too. Just the way that it changed through time was really, really cool. All right, so I want to talk a little bit more about Coupe, the leader in game. He has some of the most interesting animations.
Yeah.
And like all of our leaders are beautifully animated, but it's based on the Haka dances, correct?
Yes, our the animator that worked on that one, Grant, spent a lot of time watching lots of videos and collecting videos, and then actually learning these dances in our studio so he could capture a video reference of himself doing these things. So And
Which we hopefully have saved somewhere that I can see.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. I'll send those to you after this. Yeah, they're incredible. But yeah, hopefully, we'll have him in previous or more streams so we can see a lot of his animations as they're coming through. But they're really incredible. And he just decided to put lots and lots of time into it on his own. And
it shows.
yeah, they're really great.
And so in the game, we just met Matthias. And Matthias we met last week.
Did you?
And so that's going to be our pattern here is once we've met somebody in terms of having a first look video and
Put
tried
them
out
in
the
the next
gameplay,
one.
they'll be in the subsequent games. So
That's great. We saw our
Harold and
animations.
Vicky here will start to fade away, and we won't see them as often. Oh, we have another hurricane, don't we?
Yeah.
This is the larger size.
That's the
I
big
think.
one, yeah.
I think this is the major.
Oh,
one.
yeah, that's definitely.
This is we have Category 4 and Category 5 hurricanes.
Okay.
So this is a Category 5 hurricane. So.
Oh, no. The scout's right in there.
Yes. And hurricanes do damage units at sea, including our poor scout. So you do get an indication both on the climate screen and from the notification about which direction the storm is traveling, so you can head your units appropriately. This one's heading southwest, so it might not do too much more damage to us, but that's one of the things with storms, at least your units, which are subject to damage, typically can avoid it. Oh, Carl's moving close enough. It could take a turn that way, though.
Yeah, that's something I even talked about was just the fact of running away from hurricanes could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, we've got.
Oh, I haven't had this happen a lot, but I just love the idea of a hurricane can come, it can sink your naval unit, and then later in the game you find that shipwreck.
Yeah.
Your archaeologist
Yeah.
unveils
Aw.
it. So it's a little sad.
It's a little
but-
morbid.
Yeah,
It's cool though.
I think that kind of thing happening in your world is super cool. So one thing I wanted to touch on before we got too far into the stream today is there have been a lot of questions online about, chopping and harvesting terms as sort of as strategies.
Okay.
And the fact that, is the Maori going to be just a civ that loses out in power compared to everyone else because you can't harvest? And so I think we cleared up the can they harvest, can they chop question. But one kind of key thing that I wanted to make sure that all our fans knew about was there have been changes to the way that production from chops and harvests get allocated.
Yes.
And so all along in Civ 6, there has been a bit of a sort of pro move that our players have been aware of, where if you have a bunch of modifiers stacked up, especially through policy cards, you can go ahead and use that as the perfect time to grab extra production. And that like plus 50%, plus 100% modifier all of a sudden gets applied entirely to what you're getting from the chop. You combine that with some of our governors and other things, and you could get massive productions. And that kind of production overflow technique was something that our players were definitely taking advantage of. And we have finally fixed that.
Good.
And it's not just for Gathering Storm, but it also applies to the base game in Rise and Fall. So players who love that strategy should get it out of their system in the next 2 months, because it's not going to be around there forever. So the way it works now is it looks at what policies and modifiers you have. You don't lose those, but as soon as you finish that item, it says that item's done, and I'm not going to add any modifiers until I know what you're choosing next.
Okay.
And what you're choosing next probably doesn't have that modifier that you had just put in place from the policy, so you won't get that bonus. Now, it's possible you have it the other way around, and you don't have a modifier in place now, but you have something for what you're going to work on next. And so we don't take modifiers away, but there's just this crazy acceleration that you can get from the modifiers. We've clamped down on that a bit.
Yeah, there's quite a few changes going back to base game. I know last time we talked a little bit about the build queue.
Right.
That should be.
There are.
big.
And I know we've carefully made a list of those. So any base game players who are wondering right away what's in the base game or not, we'll have all that information. Now, some of that is getting tweaked as we keep working on the game, so we don't have a final list of those yet. So, we're not going to announce that yet, but We're super
But we
happy.
will get there.
We will get there, and we're super happy at the support we've been able to give to all versions of the game.
Yeah, excellent. Oh, I did see a great question in here.
Here is the loyalty issue.
Yes.
Seeing it front and center. That kind of most of the places we have to expand, we've got this kind of disparate, disjointed settlement pattern right now, and now this is the kind of situation where the landmass to the east, where Hungary is, if we could get a foothold over there, that might help us out. And I think that looks like that's what Carl's next move is going to be. But we haven't, the seas didn't open up to the west, so we're not quite sure what's over those mountain ranges. It's a tricky problem here for sure.
I love Matthias.
Yeah.
He's got that kind of, I don't know, the Alexander arrogance that I
I
find
think it's a lot
very
of fun.
charming.
Yeah.
And it makes me really just, want to go to war, honestly. Okay, so some people were asking, how does the Maori unique unit compare to like the Roman Legion?
It's strong, and it's something, all those kind of things, people should not feel like we've locked in all the balance decisions on that.
Yeah.
It's still something that we're definitely looking at. The Roman Legion is nice in that you can go ahead and take that extra build charge you get with him, and you can do whatever you want with it. They're not shy about harvesting resources and chopping up things. So I know a lot of people have used those, not necessarily to build Roman forts, but maybe for whatever their town nearby needs. And you can get a bit of an advantage from that as well. I find that the Legion, Rome's a very different power than the Maori. Rome is so centralized and has roads connecting everything, and usually your cities are all together, so you can build up a massive force of whatever your unit is. So the Roman Legion, I love to mass produce a bunch of them and get them running down the roads and off and attacking nearby settlements. The Toa, the Maori unit, is pretty well equally strong, and the fact he's got the Haka War Dance, which acts the same way the Varu elephant ability to weaken adjacent units, that's very, very effective as well. Now, I believe, I did look at this, and I think the Toa is slightly more expensive right now.
Okay.
But that's, again, something I don't want people to lock onto too much, because it's definitely things we're going to be looking at. I feel like right now they're good at helping get the Maori presence established wherever they need to be. But I don't think they're so strong, or at least so easy to concentrate, that they're quite as effective as the Legion as being sort of a big offensive force across the map.
Yeah. Now the PA is a unique, it has a unique visual, right?
Yes, it does.
What is that based on?
Research that a lot of the Ed actually found on that one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's cool is there are a lot of places within New Zealand that they knew that the Maori had a long series of colonial wars against the British, and they were very fierce defenders of their territory, and the British had trouble displacing them, and a lot of that was because of the fortresses that they established in some of the hillier areas. And some of those fortresses are still there. There's a famous one called One Tree Hill that is just a huge hill overlooking bay and harbor and town.
Yeah.
And so you can go and visit those. So we wanted to represent that. We felt like that was such a cool, uniquely Maori entity. The marae, the unique building that they get, is something that's shared with all the other Polynesians. It's not as unique to the Maori, but we felt like the pa was something that they came up with, as the way they were going to defend themselves and keep themselves safe when they were fighting all these wars. And so we wanted to include that if we possibly could.
Yeah. I always find it interesting how, I guess there's this kind of gap that we have to fill between what is left of much older buildings and how we want to represent that in game in a way that's like representative of how it would look at the time.
Yes.
But we did have the chance to do something a little different than that with this expansion. You know, we've got this future era, which we'll be seeing in some of the other live streams. Unfortunately, we don't have visuals to go with this, but because you're here, I wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, the future buildings, because we do have a couple additions there for your towns.
Yes, especially the cities. And when we talked about it and talked with Ed, we didn't want to go super far into the future with our, you know, our representation in art. And we didn't want to go too gritty, like in some movies you've seen. So we kind of found the sweet spot. And we looked at Singapore a lot because it's kind of already has that future vibe to it as it is. So you'll see in, you know, future live streams lots of lights and some like ads that are all kind of flipping over digitally, and
cool.
It's a really neat look, but there's still remnants of your older Civ cities there. So it kind of, I think, feels very natural.
Yeah. That is, I think, something that I noticed a couple of fans were a little wary of when we first started talking about, you know, future era. They're like, oh, how sci-fi is Civ going right now? But they're everything's based on very near future things that like we are seeing, like happening, like research or development that's actually in progress right now. So it is nice that the visuals kind of kept to that as well.
They're really neat looking.
Yeah. I know there was a particular cool thing. Oh my gosh, we're getting destroyed by hurricanes.
Well, let's go to event history and double check.
Yeah. Or is that
Just
the same
moving
one?
around out there.
Yeah, we've had 2 Category 5s. Wow. They were 9 turns apart, but yeah, we're a little bit hurricane alleyed here.
Okay. Okay, so we've got a couple questions in here. Are the different map types, do they affect the weather in any way? Are there other things, map settings that affect the weather, or is that all controlled by the
It's all mostly
realism?
controlled by the natural disaster intensity setting that you choose in the beginning. It is going to be the case that if you have a map type where you have a lot of a particular terrain type, that might steer you towards certain types of storms or droughts, you know, because it's gonna, it also might intensify in one area. So if you play on a map that has just tons of grasslands and plains, it'll probably be, you know, tornadoes and the droughts that are hitting you a lot. So, but it's not like a direct correlation that we look at the map type and we make major adjustments. It's mostly just based on the disaster intensity setting.
Okay, that's good to know. So is there ever a chance if you start a game as the Maori that you can spawn in like a lake?
No.
Okay.
Because the way that the ocean starts civs work is we look for the largest blocks of sea that we can.
Great.
And we actually set it up so that if possible, we put you in a place where you cannot see land in any direction. Because I love the decision point of, I have no hint as to which direction is best.
I re-rolled this a few times just to make sure there was no land.
Nice big,
That's cool.
So sometimes on some maps, you know, there's just no huge body of water, but it's fun also to think about the fact that you can have more than one ocean going civ in a map, and modders could come up with their own ideas for other civs that should have the same kind of start. You could play a game where everyone starts at sea. So there are all sorts of possibilities.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
I think we had was that one of our cities that was having loyalty troubles back there?
Yeah, it's having some issues.
So, true start locations?
Yes, that they are supported at the True Start location. And now that Coupe originated at a mythical island,
Right.
I believe they think it is possible that it might have been Tahiti. So I think we did pick an area, at least in that part of the Pacific, for their True Start location. So obviously in a True Start map, you will know get used to once you've played it a couple times where you are. But they will again start at sea, and they'll have to decide where they want to head with their initial settlement, and that'll depend a lot on who else is in the True Start game. So if you do a True Start game with them and you randomly select who else is in the game,
Right.
you'll have a lot of the same kind of fun exploration that you have with this one.
Okay. JJ, have you had a chance to play as the Maori yet?
All the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
playing them today, actually.
Nice.
So,
To prep for this.
yeah, they come in a lot of times in my plays. So,
Okay, cool. Are you having fun with it?
Of course. Yeah, they're a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah, I just really like this whole Civ a lot. So I love the exploration part.
Yeah. Who was your favorite vanilla Civ?
I played as China a lot.
Okay,
Well, yeah, that's
cool.
I kind of was all over the
Culture
place looking at
player.
all the art. Now I kind of hop around, but yeah.
That's one of the things I love about JJ being our art director is he's one of the artists I've worked with who just plays the game over and over and over again.
Yeah, every single day.
I know. I know you said to me one time, a year or two back, that you were really getting into religious victories.
Yeah.
Over and over again. Are you still mostly going for the religious victory?
I've been weaning myself off, and I've been going for science mostly lately,
Okay.
especially with the new science stuff.
Ooh, yes.
So
Some science stuff.
yeah,
The
so
new science stuff. I am really looking forward to some of our upcoming streams.
Yeah.
We've
I like
got a
some of
couple.
the new culture stuff too.
Yeah, I
sure.
know. We've got a couple new things up our sleeves that we haven't talked about just yet that I think people are going to be pretty stoked about.
And one thing in terms of getting people ready for what's coming up, you were talking before about how the Maori have a bit of a handcuff here.
Yeah.
And so
Oh yeah.
they can't get great writers.
Why is that?
That is because it was mostly, Carl and his team kept giving us feedback over this whole year
Right.
about the balance of them. And we had put in a lot of cultural benefits to them from the environment. And they could get tourism that way, they could get culture that way. But when they also got the regular amount of culture and tourism from everything else, it was too much.
Okay.
So we had to find some area to scale back, and we didn't really want to pull back on the environmental part because that was giving them such a nice feel that they really wanted to preserve the environment. So we had to look for some existing area to pull back on.
Right.
And so we certainly didn't want to make any comments about, the traditions of the Maori, but they are mostly a verbal tradition type of culture, and things passed down by storytelling
Yeah.
and so forth. So it felt better to pull out the great writers than
Right.
sort of anything else we could come up with.
Give it a little thematic element to it.
Right. So that's why we did that. Now, people have different reaction to that. Some people like those sort of wildly asymmetric civs where some things are added in a very strong way and other things are taken away. We did that with Congo, for
Yeah.
instance, in the base game.
Which was one of my favorite base game civs to play.
So we just wanted to let people know coming up, we have several more civilizations that are like this that we're going to be announcing. I think actually some of the next few
Oh yeah.
I think are definitely this way. So we don't want people to think, oh, they did this one civ this way and they're not following this pattern at all for anyone else. Because there are going to be some interesting, handcuffs, but also opportunities and
Right.
powers and abilities that we're going to be announcing with some of the upcoming civs.
Nice. And we have gone back and updated a couple of base game civs as well, right?
Right. Now, a lot of people are
Nothing quite
wondering.
that drastic, I'm sure.
Right, and I think England got probably the most significant changes here, but they're anytime we feel like there's something that's appropriate. So whether it's the Blizzard's ability going to Russia
Yeah.
or anything along those lines, we have a civ that we decided that we wanted to give early canals to, and since China has such a history of having canals all the way back to Emperor Qin's time, that's who we gave that ability to. So that's another little tidbit of just a case of like, now that we have this new Gathering Storm feature, let's look at how they sort of applied across
Yeah.
all of our cultures and civilizations and figure out where bonuses make sense.
Oh, that's great. Awesome. We are getting close to time, but is there anything else that you guys, want to bring up and talk about while you're here? Maori or...
It's a general thing that we changed in this one. Was back in Rise and Fall, we changed the light angle slightly just to make it feel as a new thing as you come in, and we did the same thing for this game when we brought the lighting actually around to the front a little more, kind of brighten things up a little bit. So you'll get some different reads on units and buildings, and they look really nice in this new lighting setup.
Cool.
And why don't you talk a little bit about just the whole pass that was done pretty much across the whole set of units?
Yes.
Yeah, Dennis kind of brought that up last time.
Did he bring it up? I
Right.
wasn't sure, so that's
I
why.
think coming from
Yeah, no,
from JJ,
definitely.
that would
Yeah, we had our unit lead, John Fitzgerald, put a lot of time in going through all the setups and making sure that one, he did a new pass on a lot of the textures. So you'll see a lot of things a little bit brighter, a little bit more details. And then we've also gone through and got all our cultural settings really nice. So like you can even see the base warriors here have a Maori feel to them.
Can we zoom in?
They use like the same hairstyles, and I really think there's been a really nice overhaul visually on the units especially that I think people will like. So
it's not just the human figures as well. They went through boats, they went through tanks, they went through airplanes.
The tanks and mechanized stuff is really cool when we show that. It's a really neat feel. Different cultures will have a little bit different color on their mechanized infantry or units and stuff. So
super pleased with how much time we were able to spend across the whole lineup of units.
yeah.
And people have been noticing that. They're like, does this guy look a little different than he did before? But
Yeah, we've been, I've seen that a few
not,
times.
They're not misremembering. Those changes are actually in there.
Nice. Yeah, that's really great. Oh my gosh, is that
The one up
another?
there. Yeah.
All right, well, before we get blown away by all these storms, thank you guys so much for, coming out today, talking to everyone and sharing your stories. Like, everyone really appreciates it, I'm sure. And thank you guys for coming and sitting with us. Civilization 6 Gathering Storm is coming out February 14th, 2019, because we love you guys so much. So thank you again, and have a great day.
Thanks.